Racing to the 2022 Breeders' Cup, and this time we get an update and racing recap on the weekend. We're going to take a look back at the Pocahontas Stakes at Churchill Downs, the Iroquois Stakes for 2-year-olds. We've got the Woodbine Mile, and at the Belmont at the Big A, we've got the Jockey Club Derby and the Jockey Club Oaks, both mowing the lawn on the turf. Starting off at Belmont at the Big A on the turf course, it was Chad Brown picking up the victory with McCulloch. She was heavily favored in this race, right around 4 to 5, 3 to 5, most of the betting. Ended up paying $3.60 to win. A new course record for a mile and 3/8. Of course, the Belmont Triple concludes with that Jockey Club Oaks. McCulloch the victory. McCulloch, Chad Brown the trainer, favored in the race, $3.60 to win. And we'll see if she fits into any of the Breeders' Cup races. But McCulloch, a victory on the turf. Now in the Jockey Club Derby, it was another heavy favorite, 1-2 Nation's Pride, who ran in all three of the turf races on the turf course, ran at the Belmont, ran at Saratoga, now ran at Aqueduct. Nation's Pride, a second and 2 victories in that series. Of course, closes it off with a couple of big wins, Saratoga, and then in the Jockey Club Derby. Frankie Dettori comes in and rides Nation's Pride this time, picks up the victory for Charlie Appleby. 6.5 length win. Big victory here for him as the favorite. Charlie Appleby, the trainer, a big day for him, of course. He wins the Woodbine Mile. He wins this one just minutes apart. So a big day at Belmont, and the big winners, McCulloch and also Nation's Pride. Now we go to Churchill Downs, opening weekend for them for their September meet. They are not racing on the turf course. It will be ready for the fall meet. And Fun and Feisty gets the job done, coming off the pace. The big favorite in this race was the gun runner filly for Steve Asmussen. She took the lead and just kind of faded down the lane. Fractions were a little bit on the fast side, but a little bit of pressure from her coming into the turn, and then really mowing them down late on the outside was Fun and Feisty. Ken McPeak does have a way with these fillies, getting them, and colts kind of getting them into shape. It seems like if you get a full field and you get some closers coming in, that's where the Ken McPeak horses really shine in these 2-year-old races. Stretch rally for Fun and Feisty. She's a daughter of midshipman. Ken McPeak picks up the win in the Pocahontas with Fun and Feisty. We'll see if she trains up to the Breeders' Cup or if she goes into the Alcibiades Stakes at Keeneland in a few weeks. Now in the Iroquois, it was an upset, 10-1 winner, Curly Jack, Good Magic, the sire, first crop of him. Of course, he ran second in the Kentucky Derby to Justify, and he was trained by Chad Brown. The Iroquois here, Curly Jack picking up the victory. You know, I think the big factor in this race, you had the 2 big favorites. You had Echo Again, 3 to 5 off a maiden victory at Saratoga, had to ship in here to Churchill Downs. And then you had Damon's Mound, the Saratoga special winner. He was right around 5 to 2, 3 to 1. And then Jace's Road, a big win for Brad Cox. Those 3 were all bet down, but Curly Jack kind of drifted up to 10 to 1. It was moderate to fast pace. Damon's Mound had the lead. He had Drew inside. Echo Again made a move on him going after the turn, but really at the top of the stretch you can see those 2 were done. And a 54 to 1 shot ran second in this race. Damon Mounds really had no stretch punch. It looks like he may be more of a late running sprinter. And then also Echo Again, I'm not sure if he bled or maybe swallowed his tongue, but he just kind of stopped. His feet started going up and down at the top of the stretch. So Curly Jack, a big win, most likely trains up to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile if he goes in that race. Doubt if he'd come back for that Keeneland race. So the 2-year-old races, Future Star Fridays, those are starting to come around. We'll talk about that schedule coming up. Meanwhile, at Woodbine, it was Modern Games, a fast win on the turf. I think this was probably the most impressive win of the weekend. Stretch run, really 7 furlongs and 120 and change, 132 and change. Just impressive victory for him in this race. I think he's probably going to be the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile favorite after this dominating win. Of course, he got disqualified last year after winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. So Modern Games, now the victory. Charlie Appleby the win, and he wins with Nation Pride. Getting down to the final round of preps now. We've got the Lucas Classic next week along with the Penn Derby. And then we've got the Woodward on the October 1st along with the Belle Dame and the Spinster all coming up for Breeders' Cup preps. The 2-year-old winning your in series for the Future Stars Friday. We've got the Frazette, the Champagne, the Alcibiades, and the Keeneland Futurity. Of course, those last two at Keeneland, the other two at the Belmont at the Big A, and then we got the American Pharoah and the Chandelier Stakes at Santa Anita. Pennsylvania Derby, we are going to have a deep field on that one. They're drawing Monday. We're going to have a preview of the Pennsylvania Derby up this week, but it looks like Taba for Bob Baffert. You're going to have We the People, Zandon, and Cyberknife. Looks like they both committed over the weekend. They had their final works. A little bit of surprise to see Cyberknife in this spot. I thought we might train up to the Breeders' Cup. We'll see. Epicenter had a workout on Saturday. It looks like he's still training up toward the Breeders' Cup. But this is a deep field. Taba, Simplification, Tawny Port getting better for Brad Cox. Brad Cox sending 2 with Tawny Port and Cyberknife. Zandon going to get a little bit bigger field this time. Of course, he ran 3rd to Epicenter, and also Cyberknife in the Travers Stakes. Skippy Longstocking with a big victory last time out in West Virginia, defeating We the People. So as deep of a grade 1 as you're going to get for 3-year-olds, their final chance to run only against 3-year-olds in this spot. The Philly side, the Cotillion, that's coming up equally deep. You've got Secret Oath, the Kentucky Oaks winner. You've got Adari Manor, of course, ran big in the Black-Eyed Susans. Goddess of Fire for Todd Pletcher. Green Up, who's won 3 in a row now, won the prep race. Gerrymander, Interstate Daydream. I imagine 8 or 9 horses for the Philly side in the Cotillion Stakes, as this is also a grade 1 stakes with a big purse. Now, the Lucas Classic shaping up with Rich Strike, Happy Saver, Hot Rod Charlie, Folsom, Title Ready, and King Fury, I think, all working towards the Lucas Classic next week. I assume Hot Rod Charlie going to be the big favorite in that race, but definitely a race that's going to probably a horse or 2 will go to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, the Woodward, Life is Good, had his workout on Saturday. I expect to see him and Art Collector in the Woodward Stakes in a couple of weeks. Life is Good, the most likely favorite in that Woodward Stakes. And then also, don't forget, we're going to have previews up of the Cotillion and the Pennsylvania Derby this week. And our Horse Player magazine, the Horse Player, every Monday, our newsletter coming out. This week, we're going to talk about Breeders' Cup favorites, so make sure to subscribe to that as we have rankings. Season 2 of the Horse Player, getting you ready for the Breeders' Cup 2022. So we had some big wins on the 2-year-old trail. Gandolfini winning at LaSalle on Saturday. Loggins winning at Churchill Downs. We'll talk more about that in our juvenile update. But what did you think of Modern Games and also Curly Jack? Leave a comment as we get you ready for the 2022 Breeders' Cup coming up to Keeneland, and more race previews coming up with the Pennsylvania Derby this week on the channel.